Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast channel. My name is Jed, and we are on Socrates' side quest to write the sequel to the book that we've been reading. He actually helped us out by giving us a name for that book, The Dialogue Between Socrates and the Buddha. Now, what's interesting about doing that is you have to play both roles. You will have to understand the perspective, the level of understanding and experience of both Buddha and Socrates. You'll also have to judge who should be leading the conversation. Should it be somebody who has the highest experience and the highest understanding? Should it be the person who has the skill of dialogue, what we call formally the dialectic? Should it be someone who has overcome their problems so that they can lead somebody through a conversation to overcome the blocks that are preventing them from their greater spiritual development? Should it be someone who ticks all three boxes? What kind of objections will the other person have to the conversation as it goes along? What kind of blocks might they face as they go? What might come up for them to cause them to want to fight back? Go on a tangent? What will the people watching the conversation say? As we've been reading, there's the chorus, the haters drinking the haterade, and there's the anti-chorus. The, what's the name for that? The haters? Those that clap back with facts? In other words, what do you think the regular person, either opposed to following the logos through development, or open to following the logos for their development, what will those two kinds of onlookers say? So there's a lot of different states of mind that you would have to be aware of. Open to learning, closed to learning. The Buddha, the Socrates. That you'd have to be familiar with, both in level of experience, in level of understanding of said experience, but also, on the other side, the kinds of problems they have that have blocked their development, which will arise in the conversation, and how those problems may manifest, and when, at what point of the logos is it likely to come up. Now, you might want to also include in that dialogue, what does the person leading the dialogue, the dialectician, what do they say to help the interlocutor, the person talking, overcome their problems? To gain further insight about enlightenment. Also, what we've seen in the book we have been reading is the movement from belief into the first glimpse of enlightenment that Jesus had as a transfiguration experience. But as we've been reading, there's another kind of enlightenment. While you can understand the brilliant light of being as mind, there is another level, because that's the penultimate self, its cause. So if the dialogue we're reading is Jesus going from belief to mind, would this sequel be going from mind to self? Through the stages or levels of mind, via this kind of dialectic conversation we've been reading about and learning in this book? What would happen in the transition point from different levels of experience or mind to the other side of heaven, the self? about which all of the words and language that we've been using to understand mind, no, thumbs up, give me a thumbs up. All of the language we have been using to understand mind don't apply in the same way to self. Because as we've been seeing, different use of logos, different terms, it's beyond experience. So if our enlightenment experiences we've been nailing down and developing and integrating through understanding, if that's how we've been using words, then how do we use words to that which transcends experience? Could that be a sticking point for Buddha or Socrates, whoever is the one going through the development in your sequel? To be able to write that sort of a dialogue, you'd probably want a map. What are the stages that either Buddha or Socrates are going through? What are the stages of enlightenment, of mind, and self? Enlightenment of self. Well, all of those questions we can carry with us as we jump into the ox-herding pictures to gain that map or paradigm. Those blueprints of the stages of enlightenment. What's encountered? What does it feel like? What's the state of mind you're in? How does it function? And how does it conclude in a way that could anticipate the next stage? As we've been reading, we have been asking questions, for every positive, because as we've been learning, the dialectic has the positive for definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. But you also have to do the negative. What if beauty doesn't exist? What would it be? What would be its definition or demonstration? What if you weren't following the logos? What if there was no logos? What if there was no usia? What if there was no self? All of the thumbs down. So for each of the things that we are talking about in each of the stages of development or enlightenment in the ox-herding pictures, we can wonder, what would it be like to be blocked there at that particular stage? We've been focusing on being blocked from the next stage. For example, in the third ox-herding picture, the first stage of enlightenment, because the first two ox-herding pictures are stages of ignorance, the glimpsing the ox, it concludes with, what artist could possibly portray, nail down this amazing ox I've just had a glimpse of? See, that could go in a couple of ways, couldn't it? What artist could portray it? No, none possibly. As in, who could ever eat a hamburger the size of the planet? Rhetorically, you're saying, well, surely no one could. Or you could approach that question fixing my compressor. You could approach that question with curiosity, openness, and a desire to solve that puzzle. So question and answer. Curiosity and wonder, as opposed to being blocked, certainty about your opinion. The two things that we're here to understand, the logos and the pathologos. So, who could possibly nail it down? No one. It's ununderstandable. It's ineffable. It's beyond our reach of humans. We're all just monkeys. We're all just savages. We're all just NPCs. It's human nature to be ignorant. Surely we wouldn't have Nazis taking over America right now and genociding Palestinians right now and invading the world right now and exploiting everyone through capitalism right now if we could just simply understand our problems as either an expression of the pathologos or logos. Surely it must be a human nature to be ignorant. Well, that's where you're blocked. if you're so certain. Or, what possible level of artistry could I have? Could I learn to nail down this glimpse, develop it, portray the ox as great horns and mighty buttocks, whatever it says. What does it say? The end of stage 3. What artist could portray his splendid head and stately horns? So head, not butt. Head, not butt.
Would you just blow in from Stupid Town?
I think I did. So, that's where we are. We've been reviewing, let's see if I can remember them. Seeking the ox, stage of ignorance, number 1. Number 2, finding the footprints of the ox. What would that be? The hypothesis we're playing with is that could be the intelligibility, the logos. There's patterns, there's an understandability to both problems and excellence. Oh, interesting. Number 3, jumping into the game, getting into the reading. Oh, by the way, some sort of reading or conversation you have to even discover the footprints. We've also been using Socrates' own development into enlightenment as an example. He had to get off his butt and be in the presence of music to discover the footprints of music, the inherent intelligibility, order, harmony inherent to music that can portray beauty and inspiration, allow the musician to participate in something beyond their physical selves. That might be a wake-up. So there is a reading or some sort of participation in 2 to even discover the footprints. Jumping into the game yourself. 3, glimpsing the ox. 4, catching the ox. As we've been seeing, for every one side of the dialectic, there's the other. If it is, if it isn't. For our every step of development of perfection is the surfacing of what we have to purify. For every movement along the logos, there is the counterattack of the pathologos. Stage 4. Stage 4. Catching the ox. Hey, you've been doing a lot of work, practicing, keeping your cool, keeping courage to learn new things and apply new things, seeking to be ruled by the logos you were only just discovering, wisdom, trying to do it at all times, justice. You've been practicing the virtues that you can learn about yourself in book 3 and 4 of Plato's Republic. Socrates talks more about the virtues there, and I recommend highly using the Balboa translation, and you can even find that for free online. It's a win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win.
But I thought this was actually kind of interesting.
It is interesting, that's right. So you've been doing that, you've been practicing, you've been staying with it, you've been trying to understand your own mind or ox in 4, and you're having some successes now in 5. You're finding the ox to be more gentle and serene. Because you've been going through what we would call philosophical midwifery, ideally with the aid of your dream analysis at the same time, to remove the unhealthy tendencies of the ox, yearning for the sweet-scented grasses of your old habits, to quote number 4. But now in 5, the ox can pull you towards muddy haunts, your old problems. That's why the whip and rope are necessary. So what does the whip and rope mean? But so long as you are holding tightly to the whip and rope, I suggested midwifery and dream analysis. Maybe you could throw in the logos because of that work, or you're reading, participating in dialectic. you are having some successes as well. Properly tended, your mind becomes clean and gentle. So seeking the ox, discovering the footprints, finding the tracks, glimpsing the ox, catching the ox, taming the ox is number 5. Having some successes, finding your mind to be changing. The kind of learning we actually all want. So if there was an educational reform of society, it would be this kind of education. Education that changes us. Changes our way of being. Makes our ox or state of mind more clean, gentle, serene. And what's the anticipation? Of the next stage? What's the curiosity about where we can go? Ooh, got a new follower. Welcome. 105 followers. Celebrate. Welcome, River. So what's the end of the fifth ox herding picture when we're having some success in our work? What would it be like to be unfettered, not need the whip and the rope to tame your own state of being or consciousness or mind? Number 6, riding the bull, riding the ox home. And this is where you're on the back of the ox and you're playing a little flute, participating in the harmony that we were talking about, discovering in number 2 and having a glimpse of in 3, the inherent order of reality, both our problems and the nature of our excellence, pathologos and logos. You're able to participate with it with a kind of mastery where you can function with it to sing the songs of the rustic tune of the woodsman or the simple songs of the village children. You can function with your mind in a way that benefits by participating in that intelligibility or the logos. What's the name for participating in the logos artfully? Artful, by the definition of art being following some ideal model with an understanding of the harmony or parts to benefit the subject. Not malpractice, where a doctor doesn't use his own understanding but uses his own personal beliefs or opinions, and not harming a patient ever. That would be malpractice, but always to benefit the subject and always through an understanding of an ideal model. That's what art means. We are currently facing mass injustice in our world simply because we do not have that simple understanding of what art is. We recognize doctors have to always act with understanding on an ideal model of the human body that's universal and doesn't change. If you're a Jew, a Catholic, a Mormon, a Muslim, doesn't matter. It's always, always, always the same. If you introduce your own personal beliefs and opinions, that's malpractice. And you always have to benefit the patient. If you're exploiting them for your own personal gain, again, malpractice. We recognize that for doctors, for pilots, for every profession except for capitalists, marketing. Capitalism, therefore, is a sickness. Also, politicians. So, allowing politicians to harm anyone, instantly disqualifying of the job. Having any politician say, well, it's my personal belief, disqualifying of the job. Malpractice. Also, religion. To tell a child that he has to do what he's told, otherwise he goes to hell. Abuse. Oh, but I believe it. Who gives a fuck? If you believe it, it's still bad. Belief. The pathologos, the root cause of human problems. So, in 6, we have a level of mastery of the inherent intelligibility of reality that we can participate artfully to sing the songs that benefit anyone, be they rustic woodsmen or village children, Not only that, because of our ability to see and function through the logos as a dialectician or midwife or dream analysis person, try as one might to upset him, he remains undisturbed. A much higher level of virtue, temperance, courage, wisdom, such that the ignorance or pathologos of others don't affect you. Why would they? If you were a doctor and someone with a cancer came into your office, would you have to get cancer? Would you have to get wrapped up in their drama? Would you have to pretend cancer is healthy because they have it? Just as a true politician, if one of your constituents had a false belief that is harmful to themselves, whoever they have power over, especially their children, would it mean anything to you? Oh, well, I believe you're going to hell because you're white. I don't care. It's not true. It's not true. It's not real. My job is to provide the societal conditions for you to be able to reflect on that while protecting the other people from the implications of ignorant human beliefs. While we can, again, go through dream analysis and following the logos, reading the kinds of books that we read here, engaged in philosophical midwifery too, discover the true logos, develop our understanding, our use of self-reflection and language, ousia and logos, the things that make us evolved, more evolved than cabbages, cows, and caterpillars, and also at the same time do the other half of the game. Purify the blocks of the pathologos, the counterattacks that will surface in opposition to that development. So, all of the Nazis that are doing Nazi shit all over the world right now, yes, it's important that they're surfaced. It's also important that they are never allowed to practice any sort of rulership over others because they're operating out of false beliefs or ignorance in a way that harms people. In other words, you should never be given an opportunity to vote for the Nazi party. And yes, you should never, ever, ever be allowed to lie to the public either. Because Fox News can just lie to people, to trick people to vote for the very fascist Nazis who will take away all their money, take away their ability to participate in life, and literally send KKK masked thugs to your house to shoot you, kidnap you, send you to concentration camps, and worse. That's literally happening now because we're giving people the free rein to lie, pretend I'm a good doctor, I promise I won't torture you, and then allow people to vote for doctors that torture patients. Malpractice. Insanity. Or the implications of what follows for any species who have not awoken to the nature of the ox. Realize that there is an intelligibility, footprints, logos. There is a mind, ox, that we're all here to learn about, master, tame, and ride. Rejecting that and saying things like, who's to say what's right and wrong? Everything is opinion. Bullshit like that. In other words, we are facing the implications of our ignorance and our failure to address ignorance by understanding truth. Logos. And also we're facing the implications of not recognizing that there are different kinds of people. Not everyone should be president. There are sadists, grifters. They shouldn't be in charge of anyone. And of course, there are different cognitive functions. Understanding you can use to benefit. Understanding your toaster, you can fix the toaster. Understanding your computer, you can improve your computer. Understanding medicine, you can help a sick person. You can't do any one of those things with belief. You can't believe your way into fixing a toaster, you can't believe your way into improving computer technology, and you can't believe your way into doing a medical exam. In fact, you can have fun with comedy imagining someone who does. Or you could write a horror film of someone who became a doctor because he believed so. The Bible told him. Now, that's for simple things. Well, body is more important than a toaster, but we're talking about the most important thing. We haven't yet made explicit the significance of applying that very same standard to human souls and society, religion and politics. Fuck religion, it's a sickness. The difficulty is, it's a sickness we are in. Meaning, while it's very easy for every single human being to point at any other religion than their own, we still have stage 4 of the ox-herding pictures. People counter-attacking and saying, well, that's okay, I don't like Muslim religions or Jewish religions, but surely Christian religions should stay. That's the difficulty. Surely not my ignorance. Surely not my political party. Surely not my grifting people for profits in my business, not my oil company. Yes. By definition, any allegiance to false beliefs, any blocking to actual understanding, any desire to do cruelty or harm to yourself or your fellow man, as opposed to benefiting, or anyone in the first ox-herding picture. Ignorance. Seeking worldly gain and fearing loss. Ideas of right and wrong are just used as daggers to attack people. First ox-herding picture. By 6, we have a certain level of mastery and seeing through. By practicing as a dream analysis person, a dialectician or a midwife, we've seen enough about pathologos for us not to get wrapped up in that ignorance anymore. Doesn't turn our head. And we can practice, we can benefit others, we can act artfully. By 7, the rope, what's number 7? Ox forgotten, self alone. Where the ox too can rest. You've abandoned the whip and ropes. They're in they're hanging up in the thatched house. You've separated the gold from the dross. Notice, interestingly, if 7 is the purifications of the dross, what's not gold, so that you realize, well, the clouds, the fog of pathologos belief ignorance have dissipated, and the sun rays reflected off the moon, by the way, not at the sun yet, but the rays of light of pure mind can come through. If this is you no longer need the method, you don't need a trap if you've caught the rabbit in 7. You don't need the net if you've caught the fish. In other words, free of pathologos. Notice that comes after stage 6. So functioning yourself as a dialectician or midwife seems to be a necessary step in the removal of your own pathologos. So waking up to the game in 3, participating in 4 and 5, struggling in the counterattacks as you continue to go through midwifery, dream analysis, and dialectic on your reading, talking about what we're reading. In 4, struggle, having successes in 5, mastery and functioning as a dialectician yourself in 6 is a necessary step for the removal of your own. Isn't that interesting? Baked into the system is the necessity for you to pass on the tradition. Pass on the Dharma. The Dharma is the word for spiritual teaching. Baked into the system is the keeping alive of the system. Isn't that interesting? Also, we've read a little bit, we're 5 chapters in to the midwifery book on the channel, and it is mentioned explicitly in the philosophical midwifery book that there's a natural in participating as a midwife yourself to others, you gain an experience of, well, obviously what it's like, the difficulty in going through it, which makes you a more artful and compassionate dialectician yourself, but also you awaken to a certain level of humanness of the game, which is interesting. But we're not in that, we're in the ox-herding pictures. He dreams on placidly. So we're still having dreams. So even though we've maybe removed our pathologos, our dreams are still talking to us. As we await, no longer needing the method. So, hey, from what I've seen, and rationally speaking, you'd still be doing it. You'd still be reading the books that we read that reflect the logos. You'd still be talking to your friends about what's most meaningful. You'd still be reflecting on your highest experiences, trying to get into them again. That's all dialectic. Helping your friends with their own problems or insights, that's still dialectic. So you might not need the whip and the rope, but you're still doing it. You still have to do stuff. And this is the ideal functioning. The ideal instrumental or functioning cause of human beings. But we're awaiting the gift. 8th ox-herding picture. Both ox and self forgotten, or both bull and self transcended. So the complete transcendent of all images or concepts or pathologos beliefs about the self, to the point where even the 1,000 eyes of 100 Buddhas and patriarchs could not discern in you any mask or tension or evidence of any image of the self that you're identifying with any longer. You don't linger in pride of being a Buddha, but you're not also lingering in shame or humbleness if birds were to strew flowers about you. Not getting hung up in attachment or rejection. You're seeing mind. Why mind and not just the logos? Because it's the metaphors of blazing fire, luminosity. So not only are you free of your pathologos images of yourself in 8 and reality, you're literally able to experience the true nature of reality, mind, which would burn off any snowflake. Which is interesting because people who have had an experience of 8 before going through these stages, so kind of like a glimpse at stage 3, can have a lessening or mitigating effect on your pathologos. If you've just experienced yourself as immortal, you might notice a lessening of your fear of death. Or if you've just experienced yourself as eternity, the image of yourself as being garbage or rubbish or not good enough, or a sinner or any of that religious shit, would be dissipated. Not forever, because you have to go through 4, 5, 6, 7 to reach 8. But it's a similar principle. In the fire, what is it? How may a snowflake exist in a raging fire? Over a blazing fire, a snowflake cannot survive. The highest experience of divine luminosity, or beauty itself, or reality itself. Notice as an experience. Also notice within that experience, it's important to have been developing the seeing of the footprints, the following of the footprints, the use of the footprints, and the whip and the rope to mastermind or ox. In other words, to learn to see the logos, follow the logos, master the logos, and use the logos to benefit is the development. Otherwise, the glimpse in 3 would be the same as the full experience in 8, such that in 8, even though it's a direct experience of mind or self-knowing itself as reality, you notice the footprints of the ancestors or the ancient patriarchs. Footprints again. Therefore, one of the questions we've been carrying is, why go through this? Why go through this reincarnation into a world of ignorance and suffering where injustice happens at every moment? Very few people are even awake to the fact that we're here to master the logos and understand and master the pathologos, because that's literally how you solve problems, and that's literally the method of understanding, the method of education, the spiritual method. Notice, not the, and our purpose of evolution. The logos, following the logos, mastering the logos, using the logos. We don't even have that word. We have to import it from Greek, ancient Greek. And equally so, the pathologos, relatively new. And have you ever tried to share this with others? Difficult, because most people are in the first oxiding picture. They know better. I know dreams have meaning. I actually had this conversation a couple of days ago. I mentioned I do dream analysis. I get the response I get most of the time. Oh, I know that dreams have no meaning. Really? You know? You don't? Yeah, I bet you fucking don't, because if you've ever had a look, you'll see that they do. No. Dreams are just, and there's lots of false beliefs people carry about their dreams and their dream maker that can dismiss the most significant and important activity any human being can participate in: dream analysis. Dreams are just chemicals. Dreams are your brain making sense of the day. Dreams are your subconscious. Dreams are this or that. No, wrong. It's not true. You won't ever see that unless you learn. And you won't ever learn unless you're open to being wrong. Another one of our problems in our world that we've been seeing and we have decimated with a dialectic is the idea of punishment. Punishment never ever helps people learn. In fact, it does the exact opposite. It teaches you not to get caught ever doing something wrong or ever being wrong about anything. Trump's catchphrase, "I was a perfect call, I've never done anything wrong. Everything I've done was right, never learned anything, never had to self-reflect. Everything I did was right, never wrong." Because punishment. First oxiding picture. The ideas of right and wrong are used as daggers, clip chimping. Stupid, ignorant fucks, sadists, think life's about never showing themselves, being a good little Nazi on the sidelines, never speaking up to authority, never changing their mind, never speaking up to their parents, church, politicians, but catching other people making a mistake. Aha, got you. Now I can punish you, says ICE. You're the wrong colored skin. You were born on the wrong piece of dirt, says the Israelis doing genocide. You were born poor, says the capitalists. Now I can inflict the ignorance and injustice that I learned growing up from my first oxiding picture, my pathologos. Punishment doesn't help people reflect on causes, doesn't help people go through the learning process to realize their self is greater even than God as the first cause, if you're being told that yourself stinks and deserves suffering. Doesn't help reflecting on causes, doesn't help learning anything new, or it doesn't help moving away from looking at your physical body to look at the ideas of mind if you're concerned with how your physical body is being abused. It's literally, the idea of punishment is sick and literally functions opposite to everything needed for learning and acting justly. Ain't no dialectician torturing people or punishing people. We're doing the opposite. We're looking for the times we do not sin. That's a mistranslation of the Greek amattia, which means missing the mark. Notice, sin has been wrapped up in the idea of punishment. You are wrong because you're bad. And of course, if that's the nature of ignorance, then you can't learn. You just have to be tortured. While I enjoy the sadism, harming my own soul, getting addicted to sadism because that's what I think it means to be knowing, because my daddy did it to me, and my preacher did it to me, and my imam did it to the infidels, and my religious or political leader did it to the Palestinians, or the immigrants, or the poor people, or the Jews if you're in Nazi Germany. Same shit every day. Punishment, a sickness, used to justify violence and oppression and sadism, to justify our pathologos. By the way, this is where Socrates started off. He thought that the world was a battleground between heaven and hell. That's not just playing out endlessly, therefore there's no meaning in life in the physical world, but also playing out within himself. Every problem is just the devil, and you're always at war at yourself. Nothing meaningful, no change, no learning. So he started before he recognized the footprints, the inherent intelligibility and order within reality, by music. There's a harmony in music that we can all participate in, and we can function through if we master it. So, why do we go through these stages of ignorance? In the book, we have seen Socrates say, well, it's a balance. If you fail to wake up to your purpose to master the oxherding pictures, to master the logos, to free yourself from the pathologos, both things, mastering the logos and freeing from the pathologos, is the same art, the dialectic, and it's the same art that allows you to talk to your guru, the dream maker. If you ignore that, then you will continue to act unjustly towards yourselves and others, and you'll have to pay for that. That's your negative reincarnation. But that wouldn't be just unless there was an opportunity to learn. As we've just said, punishment is sick. That's not justice. But the opportunity to learn, that's what makes it just. Therefore, mastering the oxherding pictures is, when recognized as the dialectic, the meaning of life for all of us. Why then? Why then be reincarnated? There must be something that we haven't addressed. There must be some false image of ourselves that prevented our participation in the 8th oxherding picture. As Socrates has pointed out, we all experience the divine luminosity, which would be the 8th, when we die. The depth to which we can endure that determines the kind of character and intelligence of our reincarnation. So, important work to do if you're going to reincarnate. You don't want to reincarnate into suffering injustices perpetually, and you don't want to reincarnate into an ignorant, sort of low intelligent or lowly capable person. Lowly capable. But why go through all of this learning at all? If we are from self or source, in self, and returning to self. Well, learning and nurture seems to be the thing that we're taking with us. Learning and nurture seems to be our movement through the oxherding pictures. The discovery of the logos, the learning to catch the logos, to see what it's like in the 4th to counterattack from the pathologos, to experience that. To have successes in the 5th, to gain mastery of the logos in being able to use it as a dialectician, to become free of your pathologos ideas in 7, and then experience the full experience of self as a consequence in 8. While in that experience of luminosity, recognizing the footprints of the ancient patriarchs. You've been following the footprints of the ox to lead you to the ox, but only in learning to see and follow the logos can you see another different set of footprints in the experience of divine luminosity. Which is why we said this was the spiritual tradition. Any other spiritual tradition that doesn't involve the logos or understanding may reach 8 if you're lucky, but as it's the highest experience, you can't imagine a greater experience. And you're right, it is the greatest experience. Only through understanding can you recognize there must be a cause of experience, and only through understanding can you recognize that cause and effect follow the principle that causes are higher and precede effects, meaning there has to be a cause even of 8, but as it's the greatest experience, you have to therefore look for a different state of being that's beyond experience. In other words, it can't be an experience of mind that self has, it has to be something to do with the self itself. Therefore, understanding or following the logos, mastering the logos, necessarily has to be the highest or paradigm of the spiritual tradition and the learning tradition and the evolutionary purpose or evolutionary process. Isn't that neat? We've been following the seeing the tracks of the logos and following the footprints of the ox to tame mind, ox. And then when in 8, ox forgotten, and the false idea of self, ox and self forgotten or transcended, false idea of self transcended. 7, not even needing the method anymore. But in that experience of, hey, transcending the ox and the image of self, you can see in that experience of the merging of the 3 things together. What are the 3 things? Rope, person, and ox. The person, the seeker. The rope, the method, the logos. And the ox, the thing that we're seeking, mind. Soul, logos, and mind all wrapped up in a single experience of oneness. Even within there, because of our training to look for footprints, look for the logos, look for the intelligibility, can we notice a different set of footprints. And what do we do with footprints? We follow them. Why? Because footprints indicate someone has gone further. So in the second ox herding picture, when we're starting to notice the footprints, there is a state of being or mind further than where you are. Good luck telling someone in the first ox herding picture that. No, I was always right. There's no learning. I learned from the school of hard knocks. I'm self-taught. There's nothing more. Ignorance. But in the second, you start to notice footprints, meaning there is a different, greater state of being further than where I am at. That's necessary to learn. Socrates recognized this with the musician. There is something beyond where I'm at. I'm going to follow the steps of the musician. When he encountered that beautiful young woman, talking about understanding and reflecting on mind, and there being a greater state of mind. It is the whole of seeing, hearing, and thinking. Wonder about that. He followed her. When getting into Heraclitus and his reading of Zeno, followed it all the way to, well, Zeno was writing that, and Socrates was reading about the logos as we're doing here. But he followed the footprints of Zeno all the way to Zeno's teacher, that Zeno was literally standing next to meet Parmenides, that teacher, and learn the dialectic. So if there are footprints in divine luminosity, if there are steps that you can follow of the logos, that means they must be leading somewhere. Footprints of Zeno in the works. Where's Zeno? Or footprints of the ancient patriarchs or our philosophical ancestors. Where are they? Where's Socrates? He ain't in number 8. That brings us to where we are in the text. Hooray. Because
No, you're not the one that's mentally unwell.
You're brave. You are crossing into new boundaries.
we are crossing into new boundaries. From 8, let's follow the footprints of Socrates or self through 8 to 9 and 10. That's where we are.
You just attacked my person. You just harmed my body.
I'm sorry for harming R.M. Brown's body by suggesting that there is a stage of enlightenment beyond 8. If he's mad, I say,
Yes, you do get a buff for being perceived as attractive in the
Me?
modern world, looking like the stereotypical attractive quality of today.
I never thought of myself that way, but now that I think about it, that's probably right.
Do a poggers.
And I'll do a poggers. Garbage. Brain rot.
What if a chimp had a cell phone?
Who would he call?
Yes. Lots of things to think about. So let's jump in. So we are 8 to 9 and 10. Where does 9 and 10 go? Where do these footprints take us? Let's jump in. Here we are. Oh, we're in. This is the text. I'm gonna have to turn up my fan. It's getting a bit warm. Okay, so the text. So even in religion, there are people like Mark saying, hey, understanding is the method to prepare the mind for the breakthrough we call the kingdom of God. So if you're a true Christian, get into philosophy. So Mark says, Paul, of course, is a counterattack to that. No, fuck understanding and fuck your experience. Do as you're told, as we murder you, bring in the dark ages, subjugate the world, cause mass genocide and suffering, because faith is sufficient for salvation. Notice if you ever meet someone saying, just believe me, bro, they are scammers or really, really ignorant. So, if you're not stupid or ignorant or wanting to be manipulated, ignore Paul, obviously, and get into Mark, where you get the story of Jesus from. So if you love Jesus, Mark. By the way, Paul rejected Jesus. So if you love Jesus, ignore belief, faith, and Paul. Paul also said he's better than Jesus. So another reason to ignore Paul or reject Paul. Paul also killed Christians for fun. Lots of reasons to hate that motherfucker. To him we say,
Like literally, suck my dick.
He's so far up his own ass.
yes, Emma, that's perfect. So, if we were to listen to Mark or listen to reason and develop our understanding to move through these stages of mind or in breakthrough experiences to higher states of being, mind, reality, and consciousness, and cognitive functions, we also function through our highest experiences and states of mind, especially once we've mastered them, or kingdom of God, if you want to use an analogy, then we would want to describe the journey of the soul to experience those stages as well as the other side of heaven. In that journey, there are stages along the way. I would like all of the stages of enlightenment from a glimpse to the final stages fully worked out. And Jesus says, with that, I agree. Interesting it is that before our talk, I encountered some Zen masters, and they spoke about their use of the ox-herding pictures for that very thing. Good thing we have a PDF of those ox-herding pictures. Back in the day, like for centuries, hard to get. So we're quite privileged that we can just pull it up on a PDF. And find a translator who has a decent translation, etc., etc. In each picture, there is profound and beautiful statement of the state of mind. What of the seeker? What state of mind do you have to be to experience something? Number 2, what do you experience? What do you encounter? Number 3, how do you function, or how does that function? Number 4, how does it conclude? How does it suggest the next stage or sequel? So that we can nail all of those 4 aspects, which seem like the 4 stages of the dialectic, of each of the stages of enlightenment, so that we have a representation of, as a whole, the spiritual life of man. Socrates says we could also call that a map of the spiritual journey. Hooray. And we could do that as a sequel to this book, and Jesus said you can call it the dialogue between Socrates and the Buddha. And then Socrates gives his explanation of how he got into philosophy, which last episode we mapped to what we've been seeing in those oxiding pictures, up until 8. Now we're going beyond 8. Now, Jesus talks about growing up with the same regular bullshit we get fed from culture and politicians and media propaganda and religion, that there is human problems is not caused by pathologos or ignorant beliefs and solved by learning or understanding or logos. No. It's caused by bad things and bad guys and evil guys. And if you're religious, you'll have a name for that. Heathens, sinners, heretics, infidels, goyim, you name it. If you're a political person, you have names for that. Woke, Antifa, whatever the word is of the day. Every war, you start by dehumanizing and vilifying the enemy. They're not Iraqis, they are sand N-words, that kind of shit. They're not Jews, they are cockroaches. They're not Palestinians, they are rodents. Notice, the same thing the Jews done to them, they do to others. That's the pathologos, by the way. We inflict onto others the injustice we suffered if in the first ox-herding picture. So he grew up with that, but he encountered that there was a greater beauty and intelligibility or harmony in music. And being able to function through that, the musicians were able to pull from... let's go real quick. In my youth, I heard the repeated refrain, as we do, that life is empty of meaning and all we face is war, death, and dishonor. The view that was held, it was that there is a war between heaven and earth, between good and evil, between John Diehard and the terrorists, between John Wick and the whatever the bad guys are, right? And it's unending and eternal. The conflict was not merely between these mighty cosmic forces, but is played out in our very souls. Oh, beat yourself up, always at war. I've got a dark side, I've got a shadow side, oh, I have to... No. If you join the forces of good over evil, you gain heaven. Interesting sales pitch because there's no overheads. Hey, give me all your money and be my slave, says every single religious and political leader. It seems, well, religion, obviously, politics, there could be some good politicians out there, I suppose. But in general, and you know what you get in return? Nothing. Oh, but when you die, maybe. See, no overheads. The biggest scam of them all. The biggest grift. When you die, you gain heaven. And if you don't do as we say, or non-believers, you go to hell. Child abuse. Obviously, there is no place or role for meaning in this eternal conflict, and certainly there is no escape. See, no learning, no development, no way of solving problems. It's a refrain that we are given in our world currently. So that kind of sucks, but there we are. But obviously here to learn about it. Well, we must be here for a reason. So non-believers condemn all those who oppose them. Yeah, condemn if you're lucky. Have you been to Palestine? Have you been to America lately? Have you been in any place where religion rules? Yeah. Oppose if you're lucky. How about torture, rape, murder, and enslave? Or enslave and murder. Happening today. Because we're in the first ox-herding pictures, most of us. I stayed with this early group. So even Socrates was in this level of ignorance. So don't beat yourself up. I stayed with this early group since there was no meaningful alternatives open to me. I did not have Twitch and YouTube and could not discover this podcast.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't themselves into.
Can't reason himself out of position that he didn't reason himself into because this is irrational, it's belief. Therefore, the need for midwifery. Then I was drawn to music. Ooh. I became interested and later enchanted with it. Ever met someone enchanting? I found myself attracted to because they were able to participate in something true and rational. I, like music, I found myself attracted to those early musicians who were able to capture a beauty that moved my soul. Here was a creation alive and present in the moment, only to disappear nearly as fast as it came into being. Whenever my stream ends. I'm just kidding.
Oh my fuck.
Here I could see that some musicians had reached out and were touched. Notice, they're not touching, they're being touched. So openness, receptivity. Notice you're not doing it, you're open and curious to it. How could you be doing it? If you were doing it, you'd have to be thinking about some idea of yourself, what you can and can't do. But that would keep you trapped in the current level of self you're at. Openness and receptivity. The opposite of the self-righteous certainty of believers. So some musicians had reached out but they have to do the reaching out. So there's something that you have to do to meet in the middle, something you have to do to become receptive. Touched by something wondrous, and this they brought into being from somewhere unknown even to themselves. There, as I said to myself, must be something few want to acknowledge. What's that? Here was a beauty that I realized emerged from a structure that exhibited principles of harmony. So a lot of keywords in that sentence. Beauty, of course. What is beauty? It's an emergence of something. Isn't that interesting? This is an idea of beauty that isn't a beauty of parts, but an emergence of a greater whole. The more wholes, the better, right, Emma?
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing.
Also true.
And I find that very entertaining.
Okay. I need more RM drops. It emerges from what? A structure. Oh, there are your parts. A structure that exhibited principles. Principles are universally true. Isn't that interesting? Of harmony. Harmonious ordering of those parts within that structure, following principles, coming together as a whole, emerging into a state of beauty, or a creation of beauty, or emergence of beauty. Notice, can you find 5 causes there? With beauty as the final, or the emergence of the greater whole? We've done some work on causes on the board. Remember? Causes. Lots of work on causes. Material, activity, instrumental, paradigmatic, and that for the sake of which, or final. We're not going to get into it now. Done a lot of work on that recently. Harmony, I hoped, was itself a reflection of some higher and truly existing order. If there's a harmony of music, maybe there's a harmony of soul, like we were using earlier. This is the idea of analogy, that principles and patterns exist analogously through reality, as above, so below, as microcosm, as macrocosm. Or today's example was, hey, if there is a principle for every profession to follow a universal model of the healthy human body, a universal structure of its parts, like harmony, that you can know the model and understand its parts, and it's a universal principle to apply that model and understanding to benefit not the practitioner but the subject. Doctors don't doctor for their benefit but to benefit the patient. If that's a principle for doctors, if it's a principle for pilots, if it's a principle for mechanics, if it's a principle for everything, then it should also be applied to a higher order, human souls and society. Therefore, spirituality, not religion, which is not none of those things. It's the opposite, malpractice. And true politics, not the fascist bullshit we have today. On the right and on the left, a refusal to learn the logos. So the left say, who's to say what's right or wrong? And by the way, as the Nazis are doing Nazi shit, what's the opposition party doing? Fuck all. So we've recognized the establishment Democrats as number 5 in the cognitive functions. No paradigms, no principles, or within the causes, materialism. Everything is just material stuff. I'm going to get my bag, says the establishment Dems, or the left-wingers, the establishment left-wingers, the politicians, and who's to say what's right and wrong? We're all just stuff. Let the Nazis do Nazi shit. Fuck you, do better. To them we say...
Would you just blow in from Stupid Town?
Blow in from Stupid Town.
Please end kink shaming on your show.
And I'll do my best. Those, that cognitive function of belief are the fascists, the right wing, the conservatives, the religious authorities. I have belief, and I will kill anyone who wants to understand, know, or benefit the people who is not me. Therefore, understanding and knowledge necessary. To know by definition, to use definition, or the paradigm. So this is the significance of having this, these structures or analogies. Knowledge would be the definition of the healthy body, self in relation to itself, or the paradigmatic cause, or the blueprints, to use an analogy of building. See? That would be knowing the model. Understanding would be how you can function or demonstrate yourself. Understanding, demonstration, or the instrumental cause, like the builder or the dialectician. See? Analogy. Or recognizing that there is a intelligible order or a structure that follows principles that can be harmoniously or properly arranged. And if you do that, you have that for the sake of which, or the first and final cause, the emerging into a greater level of whole. Beauty. Beauty. Beauty ain't the parts. But ever met a soul that's well ordered, functioning as best they can, seeking principles or definitions, applying that to everything they do, themselves open-minded and curious and learning and receptive? When all of those 4 causes come together, there is an emergence of a kind of... Ever met a soul like that? Are they beautiful? Socrates is experiencing that through music. So, I hope that this harmony, structure, principles emerging into a whole of beauty was a reflection of some higher, truly existing order and intelligibility. Intelligibility is a fun word. Graspability by mind, you could say. No, you can know it. And understand it too. Yes, it may be dimly perceived, but nonetheless, it was there to be participated in. Excuse me. I was going to turn up my fan. Hold. I hope my noise gate is doing, or my noise remover thing is working on that fan noise. All right. Because I'm fan maxing. Fan maxing because it's so hot. All right, into the book. It was impossible to carry the music away, yet its beauty lingered on long after the last string was played. I knew then that since there is beautiful music, that beauty must foreshadow an intelligence to cultivate. Ooh. There must be two intelligent forces, as I reasoned, one glimpsed through music and another more profound waiting to be discovered. Analogies. What I'm seeing now, what's its cause? And can we use what we've learned about what we are seeing from its effect analogously to wonder about and seek its cause? What's he looking for? The footprints. These reflections were sufficient to end my kinship with my young friends. No longer going to heaven versus hell, be at war with yourself and the world camp. Jesus camp or Moses camp or Allah camp or Joseph Smith camp or all of that shit. War camp. Finding no kinship with this group, I was open to seek other views that are more akin to what I have found through beauty. Everything changed when I heard someone at the Agora mention something that seemed so strange to me, yet it had an instant acceptance as something that must be true. A young woman whose voice yanked a one woman. Ooh.
Calm your fucking tits.
All right, I'll calm my tits. Fair enough. Oh, spam for today.
Further fill the internet with spam and AI. Who's an AI guy?
It's an AI guy.
The internet is all robots.
Internet's all robots. Also,
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
You're a little baby.
Calm your fucking tits.
Also, you need to calm your tits.
They're ruining the internet with all this trash.
They're ruining internet with trash.
And this is spam.
This is spam.
Robots
And
will replace
robots
that, and that's terrifying.
Terrifying
You
robots.
need to flood these
Flood
platforms
these
with
platforms
fake people.
Dude,
with fake
suck my
people.
dick.
And they can use
You
it.
piece of shit is a robot.
Go away, spammer. What did this young woman say? With a voice which rung with integrity and truth. She said, I thought it was a lawnmower outside, but it's my fan. She said, the whole of God is seeing, hearing, and thinks. Sees, thinks, and it's the whole that hears. Whoops. Isn't it interesting? We've talked about this. This is also Xenophanes, Parmenides' teacher. Socrates' teacher, Parmenides' teacher. We talked about this as being a balance. What we're learning through understanding, the whole time you can be wondering about what's hearing this podcast, what's reading with our seeing, what's thinking these ideas as a whole. What's the space or the landscape within which all of these things arise as a whole? I recall vividly, says Socrates, that it caused me, so you can carry that question and wonder about the ox, really, the mind, or the self. Now, God seems to be to do with mind or ox. But there are people who come along next and say, hang on a second. Could it be God or mind, or could it be the self? You can wonder. Carry it. If you want. See what it does to you when you're reading. I recall vividly that it caused me to turn about and wonder if I could carefully watch each thought and each thing that I say and hear. If so, could I do it? If so, I could discover what it was that was experiencing these things. Is that the ox? Surely after such questioning, I could see easily that what was doing these things was one. Wow.
Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow.
And not a warring God that drives a terrible fury within one's soul. Not the bullshit about heaven and hell, good versus evil, beat up the people who look different than you and take their stuff. horseshit we're fed through politics, religion, society, and even families. Nope, it was one. Notice too, therefore, all of those things we mentioned, society, family, religion, politics, cultural, good guy versus bad guy, is nothing other than a projection of our own pathologos ignorance at war within our own soul. Hey, people who haven't had this experience of music or philosophy yet, with this sort of open, curious mind that Socrates has. Awakened to learn more, name of the channel. Hooray. I heard that Heraclitus had said, wisdom is one, to know the intelligence by which all things are steered through all things. Seems to be talking about the paradigm, which is one, and is wisdom, which fits our description too. Because we have looked at this paradigm or definition or knowledge as where's a good one? Here we go. As mind, or the overlap of whole and parts, or self and other. The model or paradigm is knowing, and the activity, understanding. So there's our emergent, beautiful whole and our harmonious parts together as wisdom. So to know as one, the paradigm through which all things unfold. So Heraclitus seems to be informing Socrates here about the 8th ox-herding picture, or if ox represents mind, the ox itself. So the 8th ox-herding picture is when the person and the method and the ox become one. So you are experiencing mind through, and the logos that you reach to get there, all together. So the direct experience of mind with you as mind, and also to recognize the logos inherent of it. Wisdom. Oh, and there are footprints to go further as well. Excuse me. Okay, so from musician to beautiful young lady to Heraclitus. The notion of the one intrigued me. Ooh. So if wisdom is a oneness of intelligence, what's the one itself? That intrigued me, and when I heard that Parmenides was able to visiting Athens, I knew what course I must by all means follow. Sounds like he's following those footprints to the patriarch, to the one. He came with Zeno, and he led us through his idea through which all things became clear to me. And what's his idea? The first hypothesis, the one self. For what else was left for me than to see as he saw? So I better see what Parmenides is seeing. To realize what he had brought us to see, his method was the dialectic. Is that the whip and the rope? And it was enough for me to realize that to know the mind through the mind is to realize its very source. Mind, minding mind, person, rope, ox. As for dreams, they played a major role in my life, but they came after I learned about the Parmenides. Why? Because dream analysis ain't interpretation. That's just projecting your own opinions and beliefs, or the opinions and beliefs of others. The method through which we explore our dreams is the dialectic. So, makes sense. So Jesus goes on, did your Plato capture Parmenides' vision into the source and nature of all that is? So here's Jesus asking us to go to the... Oh no, I think he might be talking about the 8th still. He brought me, says Socrates, to see... Actually, we've got our characters, don't we? He brought me to see that without the idea of self, there can be no true philosophy. By bringing me to see that through the dialectic, that what can be said of the one can also be said of the self. So, here we have the essence of what we're doing, true philosophy. So that one of the difficulties in talking about this is we have all these ignorant ideas of philosophy given to us through the culture of Aristotle and Justinian, the culture of the Latin religion, the First and Second Reich, materialism. So the philosophy that we are taught in school is the opposite of philosophy. It's the love of opinions. It's learning that Kant would say some fucking bullshit. Hold. No, it's not labeled. Okay. Take a guess.
Would you just blow in from disgusting? I fucking bitch, pussy ass. Die mad about it, bitch.
Okay, I'll have to die mad about it. I want to hear Kant say some bullshit. Hold. Sound effects.
Kant would say some fucking bullshit.
That's what we learn about philosophy.
Kant's a little fucking bitch.
Because Kant's a bitch. Love of opinions. Kant's opinions, Hegel's opinions, Nietzsche's opinions. All opinions. You know what they're not doing? Ending Nazism. You know what they're not doing? Purifying us from right-wing fascism. You know what they're not doing? Solving capitalism. You know what they're not doing? Putting an end to religion. You know what they're not doing? Purifying our human ignorance and perfecting our excellence. Yes, it ain't doing fucking shit. That's because it's a consequence of belief or the Roman Church. So, but what we're seeing here though is true philosophy. What is true philosophy? The self. It ain't opinions, it's about the self. What else is true philosophy? The dialectic. What else is true philosophy? It ain't belief, it's being able to use the dialectic to bring one to see for themselves. What else is true philosophy? Through this dialectic, which is true philosophy about the self, you can come to realize for yourself the one is the self. That's not true. What can be said of the one can also be said of the self. So the first hypothesis of the self, the pure one that transcends qualities. So if we have that Venn diagram, itself and existence, while we talked about luminosity being everything in existence or the highest expression of what is or existence, or self knowing itself as existence, what we're talking about in the pure one or the first hypothesis is the self itself, the one self, the good self, or the true self. So in other words, what can be said about a pure one that transcends existence also applies to the self. Now, what we have hunted and discovered through our text is, well, actually the same thing of the ideal good. If this is goodness, or good in experience, the highest experience of the good, goodness, then that implies that this Venn diagram circle has to be the good. So whatever could be said of a pure good that transcends experience or qualities could be said of the self. So the good that we desire with the desiring part of our soul is the same self that we seek through understanding, or one, bringing into a one with the reasoning part of our soul. But we also posited that, hang on a second, if there are fundamentally three aspects of the soul, inner desiring of the good, reasoning into a oneness, the reasoning part of our soul, there's also the outward seeking part of our soul that seeks truth. So we posited, would that mean also that if this is truth, if our physical world or pathologos, ignorance and belief is what's false, we got what's false, we got what's true, or we got the false, we got the truth, what's true itself? giving us our 3 basketball teams. Self-er terms that go under the category of 1. Monads, so they're pairs, duads. Monads, or single words, beauty, justice, goodness, that are all under the idea of good. And truth, lesser, greater, ultimate, or. Is it on the board? False. Lesser, greater, ultimate. Here we go. False, truth, and true. True self, the good self, the one self. If that's true, we could do our own dialectic on a pure good and use that to talk about the self that we're after. As Socrates just said, Parmenides did about a pure one. Okay, back to the book. Excuse me. Oh. Have some coffee. True philosophy is has to have the idea of the self. And it's not about belief, it's about bringing yourself to see, understanding and knowing. And how do you do it? Through the dialectic. And when you get there, what do you realize? That what can be said of the one, can also be said of the self. That's the self we're after. Socrates, you're up. Come on, where are you? Here you are.
I think it's so awesome.
It's awesome that he's here. With a singleness of vision, Parmenides guided me to see how the one self functions as the most brilliant divine luminosity. Ooh. So now we can see that one way of understanding the difference between the ultimate and penultimate spiritual experiences is that mind or being is the functioning of the self. So one way we could say the one self is the definition and mind is its functioning. That's an interesting way of using the dialectic. So the ox-herding picture is somehow the functioning of the self, the 8th ox-herding picture. 8th ox-herding picture, or Socrates' second hypothesis. Because after he gives the pure one, he then talks about the functioning of it. So he's doing a dialectic. Here is the one self itself or definition. Here's how it functions as the 8th ox-herding picture, or self to others functioning demonstration. Isn't that neat? The answer is yes. The answer is...
You just attacked my person.
What?
You just harmed my body.
I didn't do that.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
Disgusting, you say that. Be cool as a cuke.
Cool as a cuke.
And also...
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
That's why. My head is large and full of secrets. With a singleness of vision, he guided me to see how the one self functions as the most brilliant divine luminosity. Now, if you've been... I was going to think of the solo leveling. If you go beyond the first 2 series into the manhwa, the Korean manga. Manga? It's interesting because they use these two They use these 2 ideas. Anyway, I happen to be into that at the moment, so. He revealed through his dialectic that between any 2 moments there is a gap. Oh, that reflects in its outpouring a divine providential nature. Providence. There's our highly intelligent providential care. Intelligent care or providence, which is some sort of outpouring in the gap. outpouring a divine providential nature whose source is the one self. Ooh. The one self is the source of providence. That's interesting. He showed in a single stroke the wall of belief that harbors all those who believe in the shadow of reality they cling to. What? He showed in a single stroke the wall of belief that harbors all those who believe in the shadow of reality. People who are stuck in the cognitive function of belief are in the shadow of reality. Speaking of solo leveling, they cling to it as if it's real. Right? The nature of all human ignorance and suffering, to savagely, ignorantly, like an NPC or zombie, cling to our false beliefs and to threaten, attack, oppose anyone who goes against the very cause of our own fucking suffering, which is the catch-22 of human nature. We violently oppose people who help us because we cling to our beliefs in the shadow of reality as if it was real. So we've got the one self. We've got its functioning as divine luminosity. We've got a different level of functioning, a division, you might say, definition, demonstration, division, through which providence outpours to everything if you're open to it in the gap between each moments. The providence, so the one self as the source of that providence, perhaps using luminosity as, what does Socrates say from Heraclitus? The map. The wisdom is the intelligence by which all things are steered. So, the one self, it's functioning the luminosity, its next level of functioning providentially through the gap. Number 4, belief, the shadow of reality, ignorance, falseness, suffering. A relief came over me when he showed that the dualism so many take as real is empty, since neither the one nor all that is can ever touch one another. Indeed, he then put all that I had seen together in such a way that I could not assume anything else was true. He did this by way of a demonstration that showed it was necessary, if by its denial it alone could exist. So, the one self, divine luminosity, number 2, the gap through which providence unfolds, number 3, number 4, belief, and number 5, dualism. It's empty. So, lots of ways of doing dualism. There is no mind or self because we're all just stuff. We're all just chemicals. There is no nothing. If God exists, we'd be ants to him. There isn't even everything is nothing, nihilism. Lots of ways of rejecting our ability to participate in mind. But it's empty. Because neither the one nor all that is can ever touch one another. What does that mean? Right, it's a misunderstanding. So the dualism isn't that. There is no... So this is... We've also seen this as... well, this would match our map, wouldn't it? So here we have the cognitive functions. The one self... of the first hypothesis, one self would be this highest cognitive function, that's question mark. But he's saying this is the definition, so it's the definition. It's functioning, the second hypothesis being knowledge. The third hypothesis, understanding. So how do we participate in providence of the self in the gap? Well, what's the gap? When we sleep. What do we experience when we sleep? Dreams. What do dreams do? Come out of a gap. And when your dream ends, you're no longer in REM sleep, you're back in the gap. How do we participate in the providence of reality? Solve our problems? The dialectic. How do we perfect our reading? Dialectic. How do we understand our dreams? Dialectic. So our third hypothesis, understanding or division, is that cognitive function of understanding, which would also be the instrumental cause. So here. Now, the reason why we've done it this way is because we've run out of spaces. So there's two levels, isn't there? The definition of self is the one self, and its functioning is knowledge, but that's also the definition of mind. So that's what I think he's pointing to here when he says the one and being don't touch. This is the idea of incommensurability. It's a jump or leap. Or wait, a letting go or jump. So in one sense, you've got the first cause, the self, functioning as the blueprints, which then functions in the gap, and its division or its other from that belief, and finally its opposition, materialism or strict dualism. So there's a couple of ways you can look at that. But here we are. We've already got on the board. The first hypothesis, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. And the strict dualism ain't true. It's empty. Why? Because the true strict dualism is between the first hypothesis and the second. It's not between our souls and mind and understanding, as belief and strict dualism says, materialism says. But in another way, there is a kind of connection because this being was said to be the functioning of the self. So while they're different levels, there's our true strict dualism. They are connected in a kind of way in that it's its radiance, or like the scent of a flower. And then Socrates says, and then he goes on to say, to do a rejection of each one of those, to show if anyone rejects any of these positions, the rejection shows the necessity for the thing they're rejecting to have to exist. Isn't that interesting? So remember how the dialectic has if it is. So this was if the one self is, or if the logos is, or if ousia is. You'd also have to do if it isn't. If the self, ousia, logos isn't, or mind isn't. What if the self isn't? By the way, this one isn't included. He leaves this one out. So the sixth hypothesis is someone who rejects being. Someone who says, you know what? I think there is a principle, self in relation to itself. But it's not being, it's Marxism or something. There is an actual definition of what informs the physical world, but it's not mind. It's Marxism or something. Lots of isms live there. Of course, if you go into that position, you'll see what you're presupposing is a kind of principle inherent to reality that is intelligible, that would have to exist prior to physical Marxism. So your rejection of there actually being a knowable justice for all political systems in the second hypothesis being, or paradigmatic cause, that rejection, but stating there is a different kind of a thing, actually assumes this thing you're rejecting. So anyone in the sixth hypothesis could potentially make a jump to the second. That's pretty good. The seventh hypothesis is a rejection of understanding. So what's understanding? The gap. So the one self using its functioning of being, functioning in the gap between each moments, in our problems, in our reading, and in our dreams, to send a providential, intelligent and caring, good heart, good head message to us that benefits us. What's the rejection of that? Where Socrates started. There isn't a providential connection between us as learning souls and self and mind, the one self and the luminosity. No, that's not connecting to us. The real connection between two things is heaven at war with hell. The angels and the demons fighting, including within yourself. Earth as a battleground. And if you get into that position, you might recognize that there are some presuppositions that presuppose the actual providential connection. Hey, if there's some sort of intelligent being like heaven or God, what would that imply? Would there be some intelligence? Could an all-knowing intelligent being want to create something evil or negative? Doesn't make any fucking sense for God to punish us and have to sacrifice his son in some sort of fucking blood ritual to demand retribution for his own creation. That's fucking stupid. How would an intelligence, a providential divine intelligence function? Have you met a good person? How do they function? Caringly. There's a presupposition, if you get into the seventh hypothesis, that understanding has to exist. Now notice, they have to exist. Even divine luminosity ain't the end. Even the oxiding picture, eighth oxiding picture ain't the end, but it has to have a kind of existence as a reflection or an overflow or the beauty of self. And by the way, if that's pure intelligence, it better damn well function through understanding to help all the cells return. Otherwise, that would be a cruel and sadistic universe. So there has to be understanding. By the way, there has to be understanding for our development that we can take back with us as a kind of necessary learning and nurture of the art of understanding the dialectic in our return to self. By the way, if there is an inherent intelligibility or logos in the self, how will we see it? In the eighth oxiding picture, by recognizing the logos or footprints, because all the way through the oxiding pictures we've been developing understanding. So there has to be a reflection, an intelligible reflection of the self if it is itself inherently intelligible, if there's an inherent logos. So they have to exist, different levels, and that's the true nature of the dualism. Each of those has different levels or jumps. Like the self is in the gap. So if you're in the moment, in the now, you're not in the gap. See, two different things. And of course, for there to be this, and there'd be a development through understanding, this would also have its reflection. How do bullshit ass right-wing fascist politicians act? Or any politician? They act knowing, like they know shit they don't. How do all religious authorities act? Like they know shit they don't. How do parents act at certain moments with their kids? Like they know shit they don't. So there is a reflection of actual knowing in belief. The shadow. He called it the shadow of reality. Or what's the shadow? A reflection, but negative. So there has to be for humans who have not awoken or made the evolutionary jump that we are here to make from belief to understanding, from the pathologos to the logos, a pathologos reflection in belief of understanding. And there has to be a consequence of that. So while we could say the understanding is the consequence or the functioning of being, so too the consequence of having grown up in belief, being told all these bullshit ass beliefs about God hating you because you're a woman or some bullshit. As a result, you might realize, well, that's fucking stupid. There is no God, or there is no connection. Or why would God create this awfulness? Therefore, there might be a self or mind or being, but strict ill. There is no mind-body connection. We can't know our mind. We are little peons. We are small beans and bad noodles. So if the sixth hypothesis is the rejection of being, that if you get into and you understand properly, you'll see necessitates the actual existence of this, which has a level of existence, but not ultimate existence. That's the one self. Has a kind of reflection. So too, the seventh hypothesis shows the necessity for understanding existing as a level of reality. So too, the eighth hypothesis, hey, if belief says, well, there is a divine, but we are other than it, all we can do is sing Kumbaya in a group. This is group thinking, Nazi groups, religious groups, family groups, clans fighting clans. We've looked a lot into this. Then what's the rejection of that? Even that isn't anything. There is no unity or cohesion in groups. We are just other from, not other from the divine or from self or from mind, because that rejects. These are all what if mind doesn't exist, or what if the one or the self doesn't exist. So we're other from anything. We're all just space dust, stardust, physical billiard balls. We're other from anything intelligible. There isn't even a group cohesion singing Kumbaya to Jeebus. Materialism. So this is where there's only the physical world. This is where that really exists. We talked about materialism being as a kind of rejection in here. So you can look at it that way, or if you're expanding it out to include these other four hypotheses, you could actually put it there. But hey, even materialism is a kind of belief, ain't it? It's not true as well, but it's a kind of belief that certain people have. By the way, if people can share in this materialist belief together and come together in their atheist meeting or whatever, does that imply the existence of the cognitive function of belief that you're rejecting? By the way, if you are all in agreement in your little atheist materialist circle, what allows you to agree? A shared belief? Is that some sort of mind? It's not mind itself, but you are participating in some sort of intelligence to be able to communicate and talk and agree on a shared belief. Therefore, the fourth hypothesis posits the existence of mind or self in a kind of way, or God, but all we can do is be in a group. Materialism presupposes the thing they're rejecting. So atheism presupposes being able to have beliefs about the divine. And finally, the ninth hypothesis, well, this is a strict dualism between souls in the physical world and our participation in understanding being or self, logos and ousia and self. The ninth says, well, if so, the final one, fifth hypothesis, is other than self. The ninth is even other than that. In other words, hey, if this is the rejection of self, logos, and ousia that we can participate in. The ninth is the rejection of even that, meaning nihilism. There's not even the stuff of the eighth hypothesis. We're not even separate ants in the cosmos. We're nothing. No meaning, nihilism. That's the worst. Of course, for you to be able to have a conversation with another nihilist, you could understand their position. And while that doesn't imply that there is necessarily some higher level of mind that you can participate in directly in being or transcendently in the self, there is still something, even if it's other than those things, that exists, in that you are two other people, other from each other, engage in a conversation that can be fun, enjoyable, especially if you can understand their position, and especially if you're perhaps the only person in their life who have related to them in this providential way, using your third hypothesis functioning, ideally like the sixth ox herding picture. Which can move them from either the ninth, at least there's something having this conversation, to the eighth, even if we're just atoms, or the ninth across to what has to be implied for the rejection of that there is something other. For you to say, oh, I'm other than anything meaningful, therefore there's nothing, everything is nihilism and black-pilled. You can have a conversation with that person and say, well, perhaps, but at least there's us. Participating in something that allows for language. Hey, we might not be able to participate in full self-ousia or logos, so above that line of evolution from ignorance to truth, the fourth to the fifth, but at least there is some kind of intelligence that allows us to understand each other's nihilist position, or your nihilist position. Therefore, the ninth presupposes the existence of the fifth. That's what Socrates is talking about, that Parmenides laid out for him, and we can read that. The Balboa translation of the Parmenides shows you the first hypothesis, its functioning, or mind itself, definition, mind's functioning in the gap, which is actually the functioning of the self, because mind is its functioning, its division into believers, and its its isolation, other from self, strict dualism, and then the sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth hypothesis that are all positions that someone could have, ways of feeling. There's your whole or knowing, so feeling state of mind, has its own logical way of making sense of it, has its own internal logic, so there's your kind of understanding, not the true knowing and understanding of second and third, but also is a kind of one that applies to the self. So there's your 3, 1, 2, and 3, the one self, the kind of knowing or state of mind, and the kind of functioning understanding. The ideal, the self is actually 1, 2, and 3, but each individual position has their own version. The kind of one that the self is in 9 is something that doesn't exist. The kind of one that it is in 8 is a rock. The kind of one that exists is that warring battleground between opposites. Good versus evil, heaven versus hell, light versus dark, etc. So that each position has its own state of mind, knowing, or imitation of knowing, not true knowing in the second, has its own rationality or understanding, not true understanding, that's the third, has its own idea of one that they use to understand themselves. So a false idea of self, mind, and understanding, formerly the pathologos. False idea of self you identify with, a false state of mind, state of being, belief you function through, and a false use of language or logos that rejects understanding, pathologos. Meaning those 9 or 10th, if we include the opposition of the first, which you didn't include, would be the 9 or 10 complete possible ways of being, ways of thinking, and ways of identifying yourself with that can ever exist. Every possible human belief or pathologos would fit within one of those categories. Every single culture that emerges would fit within one of those categories. Every single religion, which is amazing because this predates Christianity. So before Christianity came along, if we paid attention to the logos and were not suffering our counter-attack to Socrates and Parmenides, we would all be reading Parmenides and we'd say, hey, we don't have to go through the Dark Ages, go through the Crusades, go through mass subjugation and oppression of women, go through mass torture, murder, and slavery under the name of Jesus. We won't have to go through ignorance and suffering of the Dark Ages because we recognize it as simply the 4th hypothesis with a sprinkling of the 7th mixed in. And if you grow up in that way and reject it, you're probably going down into the 5th. Or leaving the 7th into the 8th and 9th. We don't have to play out. That's understanding. That's how understanding benefits us. Same thing with our own problems. Once you've noticed the false image of yourself, your pathologos, its associated state of mind that it expresses itself in, and the drama that you play out, through dream analysis and midwifery, you don't have to play it out anymore. It's boring. You know how that movie ends. And ideally, if you recognize it within these 9 or 10 complete map or possibilities of human experience, development, functioning states of mind and self, you can get an even better grasp of your pathologos to make even more sure that you won't have to live it out. Or the 7th ox herding picture. No longer, what is it? Self and ox forgotten. Let's bring it up. Hold. Ox forgotten, self alone. Bull transcended. Transcending the bull. Whoops. Get out of my face, Socrates. Get off the stage, Jesus. Come on.
Kant would say some fucking bullshit.
What if a chimp had a cell phone? Who would
I
he call?
No, I don't know who he would call.
Cool as a cuke.
Cool as a cuke. I'm serene. Astride the ox I reach home. You got there. You removed your pathologos. The ox too can rest. The dawn is come, blissful repose. I have, within my thatched dwelling, I have abandoned the whip and ropes. No tunis. The primal nature has been recognized. Don't need midwifery don't need the trap because the rabbit has been caught. Don't need the net because the fish has been snared. Still dreaming, still awaiting the experience of luminosity either in the moment of the instant or in your dreams, but you're still dreaming in a good way, awaiting the consequence of purifying your false idea of self, because you've, like gold separating from the dross, you've removed your false identified ideas, concepts of self, pathologos. So what we were talking about just now was That's simply seeing the self, the being, the understanding, 1, 2, and 3 hypotheses in the reflection on what level of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9th hypothesis you're in. And maybe as you go through the 4th oxiding picture, you're struggling over here in the negatives, making your way up. And then as you start to experience 3 and 2 and maybe 1, start to have experiences of 3 and 2, you're in stage 5, having some good states of mind, but then falling into the other hypotheses. So the principle of understanding benefits us because once we've seen it play out, we're no longer trapped in it. Which is also the principle of the negative oxiding pictures, because once you've seen the implications of 9, you're no longer stuck in 9, you're in 5 or 8. Once you've understood the implications, what's assumed in 8 to say we're just cosmic stardust, you see the necessity for 4. You see the necessity for us to be able to come together in groups to create, because even physical things, even atoms or our physical body, when ordered in a certain way, comes together to create a greater whole of our mind. So the idea of understanding. And Socrates said, I got it. Oops, I'm on the wrong book. Hold. Listen to the oracle.
Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person. And it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that they don't want to change.
Like, it's like, well, then if
I change this, who am I?
There we go. So, through the dialectic, as we've just given a little synopsis of, overview of, the practice of true philosophy, not saying Kant's a little bitch. I mean, that would be true philosophy, but not believing in Kant's bullshit.
Kant would say some fucking bullshit. Kant's a little fucking bitch.
That's how, if I was your philosophy teacher, that's how you would ace first year. There's a dumb, story that I heard at college. Someone was in a philosophy class and the question was, what is courage? And then the student wrote this, one word, just wrote this and handed it in and got an A+. Wow, fucking bullshit. But if you were in my class and it was a first year essay on a first year class on philosophy, and you
Kant
said
would say some fucking bullshit.
And that was your whole essay, or
Kant's a little fucking bitch.
If that was your whole essay, then you wouldn't get an A+. So, true philosophy, exploring the idea of the self. As we've seen, there are 9 or 10 possible ideas of the self. Levels of reality ascending all the way to the first. But there being a necessity for the positive 5. Even though belief is the cause of our ignorance, it's still the shadow of being. So it has a kind of existence that has to exist for beings in development, even though it's ignorance. So the 4th and 5th have to exist in a kind of way, which also fits with our model. For reality to be built on these duads, everything is a whole and part, same, different, like and unlike, everything. These things exist as eidos, or aspects of mind, but we experience them as adjectives for everything. Therefore, there has to be this overlap. There has to be a Venn diagram. There has to be this one. There has to be whole and part, same and different, one and many, etc., etc. Meaning they're 2 different ideas, meaning they're 2 different circles. And they can overlap. So in the overlap, we can have the whole of all parts, or one and many experienced as a oneness, or out of time, experiencing everything in time. That's the 8th oxiding picture. It has to have its model and its activity, the 2nd hypothesis, and the 3rd, knowing and understanding. But there still has to be this level underneath of parts that are disconnected from whole. Yes, it's the fake model, belief, 4th hypothesis, and our fake negative functioning, opposing strict dualism, opposing our development through mind and self. The fake model and the fake activity, 4th and 5th. So even though it's ignorance and suffering and the cause of human problems and Nazi shit and capitalism and problems in your relationship, problems in your own reading, the problems of your dreams, problems in your fantasies, the problems in your tangents and daydreams, it still has to exist for there to be a level of part different from whole. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this section here. It would be whole and part would be under here, which would make part greater than whole, kind of. Because, well, it would still be part of the whole, wouldn't it? So it wouldn't be part. It would be an aspect of whole. Likewise, you need to have this section here, a kind of model and activity of self. Hey, maybe that's the 9th and 10th oxiding picture. Otherwise, again, they wouldn't be a Venn diagram. It would be whole would be like this, and part would have the 4th and 5th, but also overlap, making part even greater than whole, because it has everything whole has, plus more. So even though it's ignorance and we have to go through it as development, there still has to exist in principle for there to be any creation, for there to be wholes and parts. Which is what we're getting from Socrates here and saying, hey, he showed that there was the one self. True philosophy is studying the idea of self. Again, there are 9 or 10 possibilities. That's it. Don't have to play out the ignorant ones anymore. And you see it for yourself through the dialectic. The first hypothesis, what can be said of a pure one, can also be said of the self. Its functioning would be the brilliant luminosity of the brilliant divine luminosity, or the second hypothesis. Its functioning of, in the gap, the pouring out of the providence of the one and luminosity would be understanding, or the third hypothesis, how we participate in providence, the source of which is the one self. The fourth hypothesis, the wall of belief. Notice wall, it's literally the barrier we have to cross over into humans. You can't solve any human problems without the third hypothesis, the logos, because it's the logos that allows you to participate in the dialectic, and it's the logos and dialectic you use to recognize the pathologos, and it's the pathologos that's the source of all human problems. Therefore, that's the wall. We will keep experiencing Nazism and fascism and murder and the war machine and capitalism until we go through that wall. But it's the fourth hypothesis. It's the wall of belief that harbors all those who believe is in that shadow of reality they cling to as if it's real, the imitation of the second. The fifth hypothesis is the relief that came over Socrates. Oh, so again, Socrates came in with a problem. There might be a logos and self and divine luminosity, but I'm not participating in it. I'm different. How can I participate in it? A relief came over him when he showed that dualism so many take as real. We can't know the divine. We can't know the meaning of life. We can't experience our soul out of our body. We can't blah, 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 blah. We can't know self, mind, reality, understanding. There is no understanding, says the Democrats. Fuck off. There is no truth. It's all belief and might makes right, says the right wing. Fuck off. There is no true model. It's all opinion. Fuck off. That's dualism, strict dualism. Many take that as real. It's actually empty, since neither the one nor all that is, neither the one nor all that is other can ever touch one another. That's interesting. Can ever touch one another. I don't really understand his reasoning, what this means. One nor all that is other can touch one another. Oh, okay. Well, I don't think enough is said in there, but we can use what we've been working on to make sense of that. If we've got the one and other here, there is this part of a pure one that doesn't touch, by definition, everything that's other, or everything that's in time, or everything that's many, one and many. So yeah, so there's a dualism in that sense. A pure one transcends experience, but there is the overlap. So that's called mind. So if you recognize that, you can see the absurdity of 5, or strict dualism. Indeed, he then put all that I had seen together in that map that we've been talking about today in such a way that I could not assume anything else was true. This he did by demonstrating the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th hypothesis that showed it was necessary because those 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th, or the negative side of the dialectic, if you deny it, you will show the necessity of the other existing. Now, this sentence uses all those words, but the order is a bit funny. This he did by way of a demonstration that showed it was necessary for all those 5 things to happen, if by its denial it alone could exist. That's kind of weird way of saying it, but by denying it, you show the necessity of those 5 positions: self, luminosity, understanding that the logos that communicates through the gap to allow us to participate in providence learning, its rejection belief, and the rejection of even belief, strict dualism. No, the rejection of, as a result of growing up in belief-based bullshit, rejecting, well, there can't be a mind or there can't be a God, strict dualism. So the rejection of those things show the necessities of those things you reject. So in principle, they have to exist. But also, they exist as stages or reflections, meaning it's all reflection, it's all looking in the mirror of the first. So they're all not real in one sense, because it's all stages to return to the self through a learning process. But they still have to exist because, well, the one self is so perfect it has to have that overflow of luminosity. And that's so providential that it has to function through understanding. But for us to go through a learning process, we have to pick up bullshit beliefs that cause our problems, giving us the impetus, stakes to learn understanding. Hey, notice, how long have we been tolerating the left wing? Doing nothing, not helping the fellow man. How long have we been tolerating the right wing existing as surgeons who want to murder their patients for their own personal fucking profits? Why? Does it require stakes for us to wake up and demand? How long have we been tolerating religious fucking oppression and child abuse? Is it going to take us MAGA Nazi fascism to wake up and realize, holy fuck, the Democrats, the 5th hypothesis, Democrats aren't doing shit, and the 4th hypothesis, people shouldn't have any power over others because they're just venerating or pedestalizing their ignorance. So a kind of necessity for 4 and 5 to exist as ignorance, not real, but still having a kind of level of existence. And if you deny it, 8 and 9, you presuppose their existence. Woo! Parmenides did all that. You can see why Socrates tracked him down. Pretty neat dude, hey? Jesus says, really, you have Really, you have done and seen what very few have. Oh, that's Socrates' voice. Excuse me. Rewind. Really, you have done and seen what few have seen, and you have brought it all together following the logos. Hooray.
Jesus Christ, Emma, this is not Opie and Anthony or whatever the hell.
Jesus Christ, Emma.
It's a total shit show.
Come on, Emma.
You just blow in from Stupid Town.
I'm cute.
Brain rot escalates.
Why are my soundboard characters getting mad at each other? Jesus Christ,
I
Emma.
think it's so awesome.
I don't think so.
He's so far up his own ass.
Come on, Emma, stop fighting with RM Brown. Both of you.
Oh my fuck.
Oh my fuck. We brought it all together nicely, as we've done here. I hope you've enjoyed it. Following the logos. We've been following the logos as it unfolds through those hypotheses. And as we return, we're following the path of the ox. What stage are we in? If we're understanding all 8 and maybe what's going to be in 9 and 10 of the ox herding picture. What stage are we in if we're nailing down all 9 or 10 hypotheses? Now, the 10th hypothesis, Socrates says in here, we should find it. Because there are 9 in the book, but 10th? Maybe just 10? Uh-oh. Okay. 10. 10. Oh goodness. 10. Space, 10, space. Oh, there are 10 divisions of interpreters. Oh, that's ahead. That's it. Oh. Hypothesis? I don't know where it is. Extra hypothesis. 10th, no. 10 space. Often. I'm getting every often. Written often. What? Okay, we're gonna have to keep an eye out for it if we see it, but yeah, Parmenides. Alright, I can't see it, but he does mention that there is, we can add a 10th. But he doesn't say where it is, so it could be the rejection of the first, or it could be beyond the first. I'm playing with both. Because, why? Because we've seen that the dialectic has those 5 stages, the 4 main ones, and then the mysterious 5th. Here we go. Like our model, the 5 causes. Definition, demonstration, division, conclusion, and the preconditions for, or the greater whole, or the transcendent jump that Socrates just talked about. Doesn't touch, the self doesn't touch the things. So Billy living in the house is much different than Blueprints, Builder, Building, and Bricks. It's a whole different game now. But we've also seen that for every positive, there's its negative. For the self-logos, there would be the ideal If you add ousia and logos and self into these 5 causes, you have the ideal. But also, if you take the negative, the pathologos, you have human problems. Closed-minded certainty as the material instead of open-minded as curious. Interpretation instead of dream analysis and following the logos. The role that you play within your family instead of the true role or functioning as the dialectician. The way of being and state of mind that reflects the false paradigm or blueprints that play out in your dramas and ignorance and suffering and problems and injustice, instead of the true state of mind of pure being or divine luminosity. And the false image of the self as that for the sake of which, or the first cause that unfolds all these things, but also the final cause, because you always end up confirming your false image of the self that you began with, a self-fulfilling prophecy, or trapped in your ignorance. The false image of the self, version of the cause, first cause, but the true self would be, well, the true first cause, to know the self. Perhaps the 10th ox-herding picture. We're not there yet. We're still in the ideal state of mind or way of being of the 8th. The functioning seems to be the 6th dialectician, riding the ball, singing the songs to the people and the woodsmen and the children of the village. Meaning, if we've got the ideal, if we've got these 5, and we've got the negatives, then we would expect there to be the first hypothesis, oneself, as the first cause, but we've got the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th as the negative versions of these. Why not this one, which would be the negative version of the self? Could the 10th hypothesis be the definition of the pathologos that would unfold as any identification with any? So if you reject the first hypothesis, oneself, in any way, you've got a definition of the pathologos. The pathologos could function as the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th, or even the 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd, because they're all not the self. If you identify your oneself as those things, they're all stages of development or ignorance. So the 10th hypothesis that Socrates said in this book we have to add in could be the negative version of the oneself, the pathologos. And it could be because when Parmenides outlines the first hypothesis of the oneself to Aristotle, the youngest member of Socrates' crew of homies, and he defines the pure oneself. Anything you can say of a pure one, you can apply to the self. Anything you say of the pure self, you can apply to this pure one that is used to define the self. When he comes to the conclusion, he understood it, because that's what the dialectic does. It brings understanding along as you go, but he doesn't like the conclusion because I don't think that's likely. Now, he could have done midwifery. Oh, that's because you're identifying with a false idea of the self, the pathologos. Let's find out what that is that's blocking you. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he goes, you know what? I'm going to go the long way home. I'm going to outline every possible other idea of self that is possible, that you can possibly have, that you would take as likely other than the conclusion we just came to about the self, giving us 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to define all of them completely and show how they all are not true. They're all less than the pure self. They're all, therefore, a kind of pathologos self if you identify with it. Meaning, he doesn't do midwifery. Meaning, there's no introduction of the pathologos. Now, either Parmenides left it out or Plato left it out in his recollection, because it's the idea of the pathologos self that we address in midwifery and dream analysis. That's a main theme in Homer, but the reason why Socrates was murdered by the
hell's wrong with you people? Sick freaks.
Well, by the sick freaks of the people who opposed Socrates back in his time, was he didn't agree with the official religion of Homer. Now, those guys weren't understanding Homer properly, but Homer does talk about the pathologos. So if Plato in his 20s is watching his beloved teacher being murdered by not agreeing with Homer, and Homer has the pathologos, that could be why he left out this. Or it could be, so what, Parmenides didn't want to include it yet. He was doing something else. Either way, we could say that the missing 10th hypothesis could be the oneself, the negative version of the oneself, the pathologos, which could incorporate all of these if you identify with it. But these three are still the self. In other words, your ideal functioning is understanding. That's still the, as we just read, the providential functioning of the oneself. But it's not the oneself. In other words, you can have it, function through it, ride the ox, mastery, so long as you don't think that's the be-all and end-all. So it could be a potential pathologos, or it could be a potential functioning. Equally so, the state of mind of being, if you think it's it because it's the greatest experience and you haven't been working on understanding of the logos to recognize there has to be a cause, could function as a pathologos, as it does for Taoists who have the yin-yang symbol. For them, that's usually their highest state of enlightenment. Because it's the expression of the self, or the functioning of the self, which then functions in understanding to help people stuck in their beliefs and strict dualism, or in any 6, 7, 8, 9, because all of them are potential expressions of the 10th, the rejection of the oneself. So any rejection of the oneself, you could say, is the 10th hypothesis, the antithesis, or the negative dialectic side of the oneself. Now, another place for putting the mysterious 10th hypothesis is above the oneself. Why? Because our model shows that just as understanding is the functioning, the model of pure being, the model, the activity is understanding, those two together is wisdom. Its shadow, the false appearance of knowing, believers, I know everything, you're going to hell because I'm a believer, I believe in Allah, I believe in Moses, I believe in Jeebus. Whether you're an imitator yelling at people on the street, or you're a preacher doing it from your $1 billion megachurch, there's the model and the activity. So the consequence of belief is to, when you leave belief and you haven't developed understanding, well, there mustn't be a God, or there mustn't be a meaning of life, because these liars are lying to me. So a negative functioning from a negative model, just as understanding is a good functioning or providential functioning from a true model, or put in here, we have, where's our Venn diagram? Here we go. There's a model and activity, or ousia and logos, whole and part of wisdom. There's a model and activity of ignorance. Would that therefore mean that there would be an inherent way of knowing the self, an ousia of self, model of self, and would there be an ideal functioning, kind of like the dream maker? Therefore, if this is the fifth, fourth, third, second, one of these two would be the first hypothesis, meaning there's one more, so the 10th could be maybe above the first. So those are the two possibilities that I can see for this mysterious 10th hypothesis that Socrates has told us to add in the dialogue so far. It could be the negative version of the first, or it could be the stage above the first, or right below the first. One of those two here. And hey, good thing we have 2 ox herding pictures beyond the 8th. So maybe the 9th and 10th could answer that question. So, following the logos, we brought it all together. Hooray for us. I said hooray for us. Oh, I'm muted. Hooray for us.
The primary purpose of peanuts is not murder. It's to eat for sustenance.
Cool as a cuke.
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
Sorry, all of our heads now are quite large and full of secrets because we brought it all together following the logos, right?
Cool as a cuke.
Cool as cute. Wondrous it is. It is good that we have come together and shared what it is that we are, says Jesus. Whoops, Jesus should be on the board. But now let me confirm in my own words a key part of what you have said. You saw and made the connection between the gap and its divine timeless nature. Did that idea of the gap become a mean term for what you sought to understand? If these are Parmenides' hypotheses, would you state it once more, giving any insight that you had? So, I think that's where we'll call it for today. Nice review of, so we've got Socrates' journey, but also today we covered more about what he learnt from his teacher Parmenides. We found a way of putting it in our map of causes. We've found a way of putting it within our Venn diagram of existence and levels of reality. And we have also seen how the ox herding pictures fit in with this. So we're left with a question. What's the missing 10th hypothesis? Or maybe there are two? And if there's a model in activity or ousia in logos, as we've been saying, it's our capacity for self-reflection, ousia, and our capacity for language, logos, that makes us evolved, and it's literally the method. That's the following of the logos. You can't be chasing the ox unless you're turning about upon your own self and mind. You can't be chasing it and taming it unless you have the footprints logos and the dialectic method of rope and whip. So it's ousia and logos we make use of to know the self and return to the self. But if there's a physical dimension, false shadow of ousia in belief and false activity or logos in the strict dualism, but there is a true knowing of the model in mind, ousia knowing, and a true logos or activity or functioning in understanding that brings providence through the art of the dialectic. Would that mean that there is two stages of self? So, there are two ox herding pictures to come. Can we bring that question with us to our reading next time of the 9th and 10th? And also, we can also wonder about if the 10th could be the pathologos. Because we are interested in our problems too. And if every insight there is the counterattack. We saw that with the 4th ox herding picture. So, where are you in the ox herding picture? Are you searching for the ox? Have you seen the footprints? Have you had a glimpse? Are you struggling to catch the ox in 4? Are you having some success in good states of mind in 5 while still struggling with your old habits and problems of the pathologos? Have you been in the game long enough to be able to benefit your friends by functioning, by riding the bull, functioning as a dialectician? When you're functioning like that, helping people explore their problems and not believing it's true, are you finding you're not getting wrapped up in their dramas? You're just asking them questions to help them see what they need to see. So try as they might, they're not turning your head. When you function, have you been functioning for long enough and been going through the activities long enough to actually see through your pathologos? Can you even identify where your pathologos sat within those ox herding pictures? Sorry, within the ox herding, within the 10 hypotheses that we had a look at today. Now, you're not just in one. All pathologos is a kind of 4th hypothesis. Did it function as nihilism in the 9th? Did it function as materialism? There's only physical stuff. 8th. Did you believe, like Socrates, that the world was a battleground between good and evil, that it's never ending, and within the world and within your soul? In the 7th. Did you seek a principle, but not one that exists eternally of the logos, like Marxism, and fight for that? Or any kind of ism? Did your pathologos manifest as the 5th? There is a God, but we're just ants to it. Or we can't know it. It's beyond us. Or maybe, if the religious people lied to me, then there mustn't be. Did your pathologos manifest as a strict identity to a, well, family clan? Yes, that's the pathologos, but also a religion. Or were you super lucky and have your pathologos manifest as, I can be a dialectician, functioning and understanding, but that's as great as I can get. By the way, there is a spiritual tradition called Kashmir Sufism, which is that. The gap, the providence of the gap, is the highest stage of being. Did you have a divine luminosity experience and maybe master Taoism and think, well, that's the highest? Wherever your pathologos existed of self. Happy New Year, says Corporal Fly. One closer to the transcendental object at the end of time, as Terence McKenna once said. Yes. Do you worship Terence McKenna and his wacky views that he got from all of his lovely mushrooms? There are some, actually, Terence knew Pierre, the author that we are reading here. And if you know Terence, you know he's very good at talking. He's your cult leader. There's a famous story of, they were both talking at some big retreat or seminar thing, and Pierre was giving his talk about what we're talking about now, the ox-herding pictures and the hypotheses of Parmenides. And he noticed Terence McKenna snuck in at the back and was listening, as Terence is wont to do. He checked in with Terence talk after lunch, and what do you know, Terence was repeating all the things he heard Pierre said. So he was repeating all the things he only just heard Pierre talk about. So there are people who are very charismatic and charming in that kind of a way. But ask him about it tomorrow and see if he still remembers what he spoke about. And the answer would be, I don't think so. But fun to listen to, and and if Terence is a way of getting a glimpse in the third hypothesis, the third ox-herding picture for you, then sure. But make sure you pick up the logos too, and don't make the mistakes that he made. Or anyone who, is sufficient with only a glimpse makes. So, have you done that? Are you in the 7th ox-herding picture? Have you gone through enough dream analysis, midwifery, and understanding of the logos? Notice all 3. Have to be doing the logos to service the pathologos. Have to be doing midwifery to remove your false, to separate the dross from the gold. But also, you have to be listening to your dream master to get the information and guidance to finish that completely. As said in 7th, you're still dreaming. Bring up 7. Get rid of Jesus and Socrates. Don't mute myself. Remember in 7, let's bring it up. He quotes other people and I don't think takes credit for anything he's discovered. Well, yeah, he didn't credit Pierre during that speech, at least. But I'm blindly defending the father. Also, yes, I know, we both are. We're having fun. Lots of, he's inspiring. He can wake people up to the possibility that there's something beyond our physical dimension. If he takes his metaphors of, what was it? Space elves creating magical, mechanical structures out of gold. If you take that literally, then you might have some problems. But if you take his message to take an heroic dose of whatever, mushrooms, much like the ancient Greeks took at the Eleusinian mysteries, then that could be a way of having a glimpsing the ox, starting the game. Also, once had a dream I was in a cult run by Noam Chomsky. Oh, that sounds like a fun dream. Perhaps really telling. Now, we have been talking about the significance of dream analysis, but there's a caveat. It's not a, what do you think this dream means kind of thing. It's not a party trick. There are certain prerequisites. You have to be in the game of the logos. You have to be reading. You have to know enough about midwifery. If you don't know enough about the logos from these talks and these readings, and if you don't know the basics of midwifery, you can't really benefit from your dreams. Also, you need to get the logos. Remember, ousia and logos. That's the two things we have to work with. How can you ousia, reflect on your dreams, if you don't have the correct logos? So practicing recording it into audio straight away and transcribing that audio, there are AI tools that can help with that, is essential. You've got to get the words right. Otherwise, and you can see this for yourself, try and record your dream, do the audio recording as soon as you open your eyes, and then record it from memory at the end of the day. And see how your memories change, and you'll see the significance of what we're talking about here. Then it's a whole process. It can take 15 minutes to an hour. And if you're really having fun, you can keep going because dreams are so rich. So yeah, dreams are important. And it's good that you've acknowledged that you have the fact that it was Noam Chomsky probably significant. The fact that it was cult was probably significant. It's got to have some sort of significance to you that you can see for you to even remember it. So you're probably at the stage of beginning to realize the significance of your dreams, allowing you to do those steps I've just outlined to actually play the game. Or go from the glimpse of the significance of dreams, the third ox herding picture, to the fourth. Because whether it's inside of the logos, inside of the dialectic, inside of mind or self, you could apply this principle or map to either of them. So the first glimpse of the ox could be for your dreams. Or maybe it's second. By reading through the sutras and teaching, by having this conversation here, you can discern that there are tracks of the ox. There might be a meaning in your dreams. Everything is a manifestation of the self. There could be a reason why it was a cult and why it was Noam Chomsky and why you had that dream at the time that you did. But you're unable to distinguish good from evil. You're unable to find the meaning of the dreams. Truth from falsity. Was it literal? Or was it a message about your true learning? Was it an encouragement dream? A reminder dream? Or was it about something false? Was it a message about your pathologos to help you gain insight into that? He has not actually entered the gate. You're not doing dream analysis yet, but you've seen in a tentative way the tracks of the ox. You've seen the tracks of the logos or intelligibility in your dreams. Innumerable footprints he has seen in the forest and over the water's edge. Over yonder, does he see trampled grass? Even the deepest gorges of the topmost mountains can't hide this ox's nose, which actually your dreams reach all the way to heaven, guide you all the way to enlightenment. In the chat, I usually smoke too much weed to dream. I've heard that from people. Now, there might be a workaround. I'll give you a little tip. For those who enjoy the leaf, but also want to benefit through dream analysis. If you set your alarm to go off every 90 minutes to 2 hours, that's the period in which we have dreams. So we have REM sleep for maybe 4 or 5 times a night within an hour and a half to 2 hours. If you wake yourself up only long enough to press record and start talking, oh, there was a dragon and he ate my washing machine, and then I said, fuck you, dragon, and then my mum spanked me on my ear, and then my little brother laughed, and then go back to sleep, but you've got your alarm set for another hour and a half or 2 hours, then that might be a workaround that you can play with. I usually smoke touch weed to dream. Studies show that the lower REM vape shop out here, TSC Lowers in California, offers psilocybin-based chocolate. Whoa, you're a lucky person. I heard Pierre Grimes say, by the way, you know what's a fun time to do dialectic dream analysis? Midwifery? When you're tripping. I'm about to hit that shit this Saturday for my 39th birthday. Oh. I hope you have fun. Yes, take us about 2 to get REM 2 hours. Yeah. So you don't have to, report back. See if it works. And I hope you have fun on your trip. As Terence McKenna would say, take an heroic dose. I'm not saying that, but that was something that he would say. Oh, and have that audio recorder handy if you want. And if you know someone who's been in the game, practicing the 6th oxherding picture, the dialectic, can be really fun to have someone to talk to. Because with the sometimes they call it artificial juriki or spiritual energy, it can push you through your pathologos blocks that have kept you at your same level that you're at, gain insight, gain a glimpse, have the 3rd ox-herding picture, perceive the bull, the first glimpse of the ox. He comes to a realization, if he listens intently, that at that instance he can see the very source. The 6 senses, including thought, I think, are no different from this true source. In every activity, the source is manifestly present. It is analogous to salt in salt water or binder in paint. With the inner vision, when the inner vision is properly focused on your trip, one comes to realize that that which is seen is identical with the true source. And the poem, a nightingale warbles on a twig, the sun shines on undiluted willows. There stands the ox. Where could he hide? That splendid head, those stately horns, what kind of art or artist would be able to portray them? So, maybe you will have a glimpse. What were we talking about a second ago? Oh yes, the question was, are you at 7 where you have transcended the ox because you have separated your false idea of self from yourself? Was that the question? 6, riding the ox home. Abandon the whip and ropes. Free from your pathologos. Ah, dreams. But where does he say about dreams? Let's find it. Oh yes, but even in 7, only on the ox was he able to come home. Only through this art, dialectic, dream analysis, midwifery. Been lurking you while working for the past number of months since I followed you, and I try to keep up when I can. Oh, good for you. Hooray. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're enjoying it. And I hope you're having something to talk about with your friends. Could be interesting coffee conversation. Pat on the back for you. Emma says,
The more holes, the better.
the more holes the better. Emma's a bit dirty sometimes.
I think it's awesome.
But R.M. Brown thinks it is awesome. So, only on the ox were you able to come home. But lo, the ox is not vanished, and alone and serene sits the man. So you've seen enough about the false image of yourself that prevented you from being in those states without needing all of the chocolate. Because of the method, logos, reading, midwifery, addressing the blocks that come up, dream analysis, your guide. You could put the whip and ropes down now, but the ox is still there. The sun rides high, the red sun, Superman. I don't know, you make that connection. Rides high in the sky as he dreams on placidly. We're still dreaming. Even free of pathologos, we might get messages through our dreams because we're yet to have the fullest experience of mind, which is 8. The oneness. For you, the viewer, the activity of viewing and the thing being viewed, the person, the rope, and the ox all merge together into a oneness. In that direct recognition of yourself as everything all at once, how could you hold any other image of yourself as being a small bean or bad noodle? A lesser pathologos. Can't. In that raging fire, how can a snowflake exist? But remember, we have been, as you have been, wondering and following the logos the whole time. So even in the highest experience, so whether in your trip maybe keep wondering about the higher source and the mind, whatever questions that have come to birth to you, hold on to those questions and keep that wondering curiosity. And even when you reach the most profound luminosity of recognizing yourself as everything eternally, do you notice an intelligibility? Do you notice footprints? In other words, can you still keep your wondering nature and ask, that's interesting. I wonder what caused this, because every experience has a cause. Or, that's a nice experience. What's the self experiencing it? Or, this seems like the greatest experience possible. By the way, the footprints, or the other philosophers, the ancient patriarchs or our philosophical ancestors, they've walked through here. This is the second hypothesis, the luminosity of self. In other words, here are the footprints of the ancestors that I could follow. What's on the other side of experience? That's the 8th. Every ox herding picture has a possibility of transitioning into the next, so long as you have that ideal receptive cause. We talked about the material cause has to be receptive. Open-minded, curious, seeking truth, free, open to the self-logos, love understanding. So curiosity, questions, and understanding. The opposite is closed-minded, certainty and belief, stuck in the anti-self, blocked from the logos, fearing understanding. So you want to be in that open, curious, wondering state, even in divine luminosity, because even that 8th ox herding picture is still knowledge or divine luminosity of the second, which is itself the functioning of the first. So, that's what we're wondering about. Where are we in the ox herding pictures? How can we share where we are with our friends? Because that allows us to skip forward to number 6. Even if you're just having a glimpse, or you haven't even had a glimpse, you can still practice riding the ox. Jump ahead a little bit, gain some extra points, gain some extra stat points, level up, even as you go. Wonder about what it'd be like to be free of the self in 7. Wonder about what it would be like to experience mind directly as 8, divine luminosity. And wonder about what's the first hypothesis, what's beyond 8, as well as if there are 2 ox herding pictures yet to go, could there be a state even beyond the pure oneself? We'll have to wait until next time and see the 9th and 10th ox herding picture. And then we can jump back into Socrates' conversation with Jesus and see if he gives us any clues or guidance into our insight. Lots of fun. Win, 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 win.
It's a win, 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 win.
And don't forget...
Disgusting. I'm so
Don't
disgusted.
be disgusting.
Hey man, wouldn't some kind of future where people have all their whatever basic needs met,
basic
shelter,
needs
all
met.
this crap, and they could do whatever the hell they want, wouldn't that be good? No,
Yes.
it wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't. Come on. I say it is.
You just blow in from Stupid Town. Yes, you do get a buff for being perceived as attractive in the modern world. Looking like the stereotypical attractive quality of today.
Thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all day today. And also...
Cool as a cuke.
Very cool as a cuke. And as Emma says...
Bless you. Excuse you. Bless you.
Bless and excuse all of us. I will see you in the next one. Oh, Twitch, YouTube, link below for Discord and the PDF. And if you want to donate to the channel, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for stopping in, Corporal. Bye.